Sorry about that. Had a little brain fart there. Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quills here with you. Penguin AZ is here. Brendan is here. And we have a bunch of people also watching on X tonight. It's Thursday night. It's the start of the weekend for most people. Well, for most people, it's you're this close away from the weekend. Me, I'm working all weekend. I'm working tomorrow. So no parade for me. But you know, and I do have to say one thing about Penguin AZ. Good dude, but I don't know. But also, yeah, there's some sort of parade in Philly tomorrow. Um, and glad I work from home because I would not. I would definitely say I'm just not coming in. F you. But that would be me. But uh, but it's uh fun week here in Philly with the Eagles winning, and also the parade on Friday, which we don't get many championship parades in this town, and it's the first one since 2017, and the mayor got it right. She has the parade going north on Broad Street so it can end at the art museum, and you know, fun time here in Philly right now. And Brendan, welcome in as well. Watching there on Twitch. Hopefully everybody's out there doing well. Me, got through my Monday, so to speak. If you knew the way I request my days off at work, when we have a week where we have a week where we're open on Sunday, I try to work both the Saturday and the Sunday. So not only am I working Saturday and Sunday this weekend, I'm also working the holiday on Monday. So, but what I do is I force myself into working the Sunday, and then I get the holiday money for working a holiday, and so you know, got some money coming my way, and hopefully can turn it around and give you guys some winners with also eligible, which will be on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on the Bleacher Brothers Network, the Bleacher Brothers channel on YouTube, and hopefully we'll give you some winners from Fairgrounds as they have. I believe it's the Risen Star on Saturday. Big race in the Kentucky Derby prep races on that road to the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks. So we will be doing that on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. with a hard out for 11:15 because your boys got to work on Saturday. So, but we have some interesting stories here tonight, and I don't have the banner up. Um, so let's begin with the New York Football Jets and Penguin AZ's boy Aaron Rodgers got told to get out in New York today. Well, he was last week, I should say, but it was announced today that Aaron Rodgers will not be coming back to the New York Football Jets. And, the numbers weren't that bad. Um, 28 touchdowns. I believe it was 11 interceptions or something to that effect. Uh, 3,897 yards and 28 touchdowns. But it was a very uneven 28 touchdowns. Because he had the Jets were 3-7 in one score games. Um, Rodgers failed in a few of them to pull out wins in the final possession. It could be the team, it could be him, it could be a combination of everything. But I think that the Jets, with the new head coach, they want to get rid of that distraction, and they want to bring in somebody new. And probably that's what they're going to do here: get a quarterback in the first round. And let me tell you, other than, let's say, the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions of the world, um, if there's any place that you would be revered for the rest of your life, never have to pay for a meal again, it's probably the New York Jets job, because it's been so long since the Jets have won. They have been dog shit for so long, and you just don't realize. I mean, if you really think about it, you don't really realize how bad they've been since Bill Belichick said, "I'm not going here. I fooled you." But, um, but yeah, they do have Aaron Glenn, and I'm interested to see what he does. Now, some people will say, "Well, that defense really went in the toilet in December and January when he was with the Lions." But when you're basically starting a high school team on the defensive side of the ball, you are going to give up a shit ton of points. Now, but you did have that game with Minnesota where you only gave up what, 7 points in that game. So, um, so you do have all these different possibilities here with the Jets here, and it's just that they're screaming that they need a new regime, a new head, a new head coach. They got the head coach, they got the new GM, and hopefully they can build something. And you know, even though I'm an Eagles fan, I kind of root for a team like the Jets to at least make the playoffs every once in a while. They don't necessarily have to win the Super Bowl. Probably, probably be along the lines of Baker Mayfield when he actually won a game for the Cleveland Browns. I think he was the quarterback when they finally broke that losing streak, but or winless streak because they had a tie in there. But you do have an opportunity to make a name for yourself, and you probably get a little bit of a break here because yeah, you're going to be a new quarterback, but patience is not that great in any franchise. But even with all the drama queen stuff that A Rod did, you really got to realize that it looked good in the beginning, but you got fooled, and now you just gotta start over, and you're starting over with a new coach, new GM, new everything. So, but But the Jets made it official today. The Aaron Rodgers era is over. The Jets said goodbye to Rodgers on Thursday with a news release that included statements of gratitude from team officials. Gratitude for what? That's what I want to know. Gratitude for blowing out your Achilles on the worst turf in NFL history? For putting some ayahuasca dealers in business in the Bronx or Brooklyn or the mean streets of East Rutherford? But Jets didn't give a reason for the decision, but part of it that we mentioned the other night was the fact that Aaron Rodgers would go on the Pat McAfee show weekly, and they did not want him to do that in the future for under the Aaron Glenn regime. And Aaron Rodgers wants to do it. He gets paid to be on that show. You've got to, you know, you don't want to lose. I mean, obviously, he doesn't want to lose that money. He's also friends with Pat McAfee, so yeah, he's going to fight that. And he's got to be in all mandatory camps, and probably said, "Oh, I'm going on a trip here." No, you're not. Oh, I'm going to be on MacMe. No, you're not. All right, well, then release me, or however it went. So, so the Jets didn't give a reason, saying only they met last week with Rodgers and shared that our intention was to move in a different direction at quarterback. Where that direction is, I don't know. I imagine first round draft pick, but um, Aaron Glenn and general manager Darren Mulgy said in a joint statement earlier today, it was important to have this discussion now to provide clarity and enable each of us the proper time to plan for our respective futures. We want to thank him for the leadership, passion, and dedication he brought to the organization and wish him success moving forward. Um, Dedication? He was too busy that one trip going to Egypt. Passion? Leadership? Eh, I don't know. But Rogers did not make a statement. In There was no statement from Rogers. Um, Rogers flew from California to New Jersey last week for a face-to-face meeting with Glenn and Mulgy, both of whom were introduced at the January 27 news conference. Glenn was non-committal on Rogers' status in that news conference, and I think when you just get the job, you want to get used to everything. So, um, but he reinforced the belief that the new regime was going to part with Rogers, who had 1 year left on his contract. Um, Now on Sunday, now I didn't see this report only because maybe it was reported earlier in the day of that 18-hour pregame show. I exaggerate with the timeline, but you get the idea. Fox Sports reported that Rogers had been informed of his ouster. The Jets declined to comment at the time. Um, Owner Woody Johnson thanked Rogers for his 2 seasons in New York. Um, His arrival in 2023 was met with unbridled excitement. I will forever be grateful that he chose to join us to continue his Hall of Fame career. Well, that Hall of Fame career did not go too well in the 2 years in New York. Um, from day one, he embodied all that it meant to be a New York Jet, embraced our fans, and immersed himself in our city. That is what I will remember most when I look back at his time here. He will always be welcome, and I wish him only the best in whatever he chooses to do next. Let's see if they really choose to bring him back. Uh, but you get the idea. So he had little on-field success. He won only 6 of 18 starts. The Jets sputtered to a 5-12 record this year. Robert Sala and Joe Douglas were fired. They were instrumental in getting Rodgers to come to the Jets. They were fired during the season. It just seemed like everything kept snowballing this year. Um, Now, the Jets are likely to release Rodgers with a post June 1 designation. Now, how that works is they must carry him on the roster until March 12th, which is the start of the league year. At that point, they can release him, which will allow them to split the remaining cap charges of $49 million over 2 years, 14 million in 2025 and 35 million in 2026. Um, in this scenario, his current cap number 23.5 million will be on their books until June 2nd, when it drops to 14 million, a net savings of 9.5 million. Now, in the meantime, he would be free to sign elsewhere on March 13th. He doesn't have to wait until then to speak with teams. He can do so immediately. So he could start going to um, Vegas and maybe even the Raiders, Pittsburgh, couple others, a couple other teams that need a quarterback that may not necessarily be going, may not necessarily draft in the first round because the two or three top guys that you want to get won't be there for them. So it could be him. It could be, you know, we'll see what happens with everything that goes down when the new NFL year begins on March 12th, I believe they said. Yeah, March 12th. Um, Now, as of right now, it's also unclear if Rodgers is going to continue his career because he was probably in this dark room wondering what to do. He said he would take some time to decide whether to play a 21st season. Um, Now, his departure leaves a gaping hole at quarterback. Under contract are Tyrod Taylor, who I can't believe he's 35 when I saw that. Um, you know, I mean, we saw enough Tyrod Taylor, but you don't realize that, he doesn't get on the field that much, but he's been hanging around NFL rosters for however many years. And they also have 2024 fifth round draft pick Jordan Travis, who sat out last season as he recovered from a gruesome leg injury at Florida State. Now, it is expected that the Jets would pursue a veteran, either in a trade or free agency. Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields are possible options as the Jets look to rebuild the position. Now, Kirk Cousins right now would be a trade option, and Atlanta would do anything they can to get rid of him with Michael Penix Jr. Taking over the quarterback role near the end of the year. Justin Fields probably, in most cases, probably would not have lost his starting job. But because it was Russell's to win or lose until he got hurt right before the start of the season, they had Justin Fields start a couple of games and then Russell Wilson took over. Um, but I think both are free agents. Um, but I mean, we all know why this was one of the most disappointing moves in Jets franchise history. His first season ended quickly when he tore his Achilles after 4 snaps. He started every game for the Jets last season, um, but he was a non-factor most of the season in a year where they were dreaming Super Bowl. And you just when your expectations are way up here and your results are down here, there's too much of a gap here between Super Bowl dreams and the reality of a lost season, a season of total shit. Uh, so yeah, you just you know somebody's got to be to blame, and it's Aaron Rodgers. Whether you feel like it's fair or not. Um, and like I said, he had 28 touchdowns, almost 4,000 yards passing. It was an uneven performance. The Jets finished 3-7 in one-score games. Rodgers didn't have any comfort behind any fourth quarter final drive wins. Um, he took a voluntary $35 million pay cut to help provide cap relief in 2023. His teammates um, voted him the most inspirational player in 2023 when he tried to come back after the Achilles injury after 3 months. Um, his comeback bid came up short, but with that inspirational stuff, he also had a lot of controversy off the field. Like I said, went to Egypt when they had a mandatory training camp. It was deemed an unexcused absence. And he was fined approximately $100,000 by the team. But it just seems like Aaron Rodgers just does whatever he wants. He's more and more aloof. Um, he does have he has had a rift with his family for about 10 years. I think it's still going on. But um, you know, could Aaron Rodgers come back? I guess. Um, I mean, I don't know if he should or not. I think the worst part about it is the fact that if you think about it, the worst part about everything is the fact that he probably thinks, well, if Tom Brady can win a Super Bowl at 40 some years old, I can do it too. But, you know, no two people are the same. And, you know, if you're going to, I mean, I don't know what his training regimen is compared to Tom Brady's was when he was stretching instead of lifting weights. Um, you know, you never know. But I would love to see, you know, if he does come back, you know, so be it. But, you know, I'm kind of tired of his antics, you know, the ayahuasca, you know, the trip to Egypt and the conspiracy theories and everything else. Um, you know, like the one congressperson that said just dribble your basketball. You know, in my case, you know, just twirl the football in your finger or whatever. But you know, if he retires, and so be it. You know, I mean, and if he comes back, so be it. It's no big deal to me, one way or the other. Just hope it's not in the NFC East because you know he can still fling the ball around, but and also I also think that the second year after the Achilles is when things starting getting back to normal. But you're talking about a 41-year-old here, and you know, Father Time. We all say it all the time. Father Time is undefeated, and there's so many different things that you have to consider here. Even on the management side, if you really do want to sign him or not, do you want to deal with the extra baggage he brings? Do you want to deal with, you know, all the goofy stuff he does? I don't know, but thankfully my team has a quarterback that just won a Super Bowl, and we'll see. But um, but hopefully we have a decision on what he's going to do in the next couple of weeks because he's he can talk to anybody right now because they're going to give him that June 1st designation. He can start talking to teams and they can go from there. So so Aaron Rodgers told to kick rocks by the New York Jets. Now I saw this today as we are going into NBA All Star Weekend, and I know All Star Weekend isn't what it used to be. You know, it used to be that you had some fun events, and then the game itself was actually a basketball game. Whereas last year it just turned into a 3 point and dunk contest within the game, and you know one of the teams scored over 200 points. And we know that they've changed things around this year, but one thing that will not be happening is a Steph Curry Sabrina Ionescu 3 point showdown rematch. Um, I mean, I think they wanted to make it a 2-by-2 thing with Curry and Ionescu and possibly Caitlin Clark and Clay Thompson, but it's just they just couldn't get it to work out. So there's going to be no rematch this weekend. They announced that today that the 3 point shooting event, which was the highlight of last year's weekend in Indianapolis, that brought together two of the biggest stars in the NBA and WNBA, is not going to be part of the lineup in San Francisco this year. Now, I don't know if this means it's a one and done. I don't know if it means that they're going to do something else next year, whether it's Ionescu, whether it's Clark, whether it's somebody else. Um, but talks went on for weeks to make things happen, even stretching into this week. Um, it seemed more than logical that a rematch would occur. All Star Weekend is on Curry's home floor in San Francisco, And Ionescu, who plays for the WNBA champion New York Liberty, is a Bay Area native who grew up watching Curry and the Golden State Warriors. Now, I know she did have surgery on her thumb. I don't. I admit I haven't watched on the Unrivaled League, but I mean with extreme interest. Um, yeah, if I wasn't streaming, I probably would be watching it because of the uniqueness and getting to learn what they're doing with the league, with that league itself. But um, but I don't know how her thumb and wrist are doing after that surgery. But she is playing in the Unrivaled League last I checked. Um, so according to NBA spokesman Mike Bass, he said that we weren't able to land on a plan that we thought would raise the bar off of last year's special moment. We all agreed not to proceed and will instead keep the focus on the All Star Sunday's new format because you have four teams. I think they're playing the 40 or 50, and the winner of each game advances to the finals. You got the young stars, and then you have the three groups of eight uh, from the All Stars because you have 24 All Stars. Um, Curry said he wanted the rematch to occur, but there were talks of making a 2x2 tournament, which I mentioned before. Um, now, Caitlin Clark's representative said last month that she wanted her first 3-point contest to come at the WNBA All Star Weekend in Indianapolis, which will be this summer, and would not participate in a special challenge during NBA All Star Weekend. Now, some people say, "Oh, she's just big time and blah blah blah." I will tell you, I'm okay with it because the All Star Game's in front of her home crowd. They didn't have any of the typical pregame stuff that they have at the All Star Game this year because there was, or at least if they did, she wasn't involved in it. You know, she's going to be in front of her home crowd. Yeah, I have no problem with that. So um, now, as the 2-on-2 talks seem to fall apart, the NBA hoped to bring some form of Curry versus Ionescu back, potentially even including it in the Sunday night lineup between games of the new All Star mini tournament, rather than having it be a part of All Star Saturday like it was a year ago. So even more eyes would be watching. And when this was first announced last year, the only thing I hope for, and because I know how some people think, oh, get her off the floor. She's got no she's got no shot with him and blah blah blah. She shouldn't be on the same court. All the BS that you hear. I feel like the fact that she held her own and it was very competitive up until the last shot or two, that was exactly what the NBA and WNBA wanted. You got a close matchup. Curry won. It didn't matter to me who won. I just didn't want it to be a total flop and a total embarrassment. It definitely was far from that. So um, now Ionescu said of last year's event, we've been talking about finding different ways to change things up next year. I think he has a partner in mind that's going to join him, so I'm open to any partner that could help me win and take that belt that he has up front and center away from him. And it was 29-26 last season for the first such event of its kind on the weekend showcase, and I enjoyed that, you know. Um, but Curry is 36 years old, all-time leader in both three-point attempts and makes. He shoots at a career 42.4%. Ionescu's 27 is a 36.4% three-point shooter. through her first 5 WNBA seasons, and yeah, I hope that they bring this back. I really do. I hope they bring it back. Whether they do or not is another story, but I enjoyed it. And the thing is, if somebody gets blown out, if Steph Curry had lost big time to Sabrina, then it would have been, oh, you lost to a girl. Or if Ionescu lost really bad to Curry, be like, oh, you don't belong on the same court as him. You know, it was a fun competition. There was the belt, there was charities that were involved, I believe, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was one of the few things I watched that whole All Star weekend um, that was um, All Star weekend in the NBA, and it lived up to the hype. Now, what they do for next year, if there is an event like this next year, we'll see. There's no indication they're going to do it next year, I don't think, but maybe there is. They do have, mm, they do have a year to figure it out. So let's see what they have planned, and we'll go from there. Now, I also saw this today, and I kind of mentioned the pace of play issues in golf, but the problems were more on the PGA side because you had Dottie Pepper, who was a former LPGA player. She walks the courses covering the events for CBS. She made a comment about a month ago about how the pace of play was very slow. And um, and I think the PGA Tour is looking into different things. And I think maybe with the LPGA making some decisions today and announcing them, maybe they follow the lead that the LPGA has, or they do something that the PGA management they have some sort of agreement with the players because, you know, 5.5 hours to do a round of golf is little excessive. And especially this part of the year, um, it's harder to get around it under daylight. Now, you're not going to see what they did in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia for the Live event. Now, I don't know if this is a course that's lit up all the time or it was just lit up for the tournament, but that Live event that they had last weekend was under the lights there in Riyadh. Now, whether it's something that they do in the future, you know, but but especially in the United States, you're reliant on natural light, and once the sun sets, you're screwed. And it's more than just that; it's also the players having to stand around and take 5 hours for an event that would only usually take 4 to 4.5. You're doing that extra hour doing, um, just doing your round of playing your round of golf. Um, but the LPGA today announced their new pace of play policy. It includes lower timing thresholds for fines and penalties, and including a new one-stroke penalty for golfers who take too long to hit their shots. Now, one question I have, because you have to, you try to be as quiet as possible when they're about to line up their ball and take their next shot. Is there going to be like a shot clock, not only at the tee and the green, but also in the middle of the fairway, like off the side of the fairway? Is something like that going to come up now too? Now, I'm okay with pace of play rules to a certain extent, but how are you going to enforce it when you're in the fairway like that? Because it's easy to do it at the tee and at the green, especially when you're in a major tournament. I don't want to say majors and the four majors, but you got a big tournament. You got the video boards, the temporary video boards and stuff like that, so you can do clocks countdowns like that. But it also just seems like we're just appeasing the people that have no attention span whatsoever. But I will tell you, I agree with the pace of play rules because you get a 5.5 hour round. You don't want to be sitting there watching 3 hours of 3 hours of the leaders on the back nine. You want to see a little bit of movement. But under this policy for the LPGA, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's something similar with the PGA because they're going to be doing something with this as well. Um, they said that the new policy, which is designed to speed up play on the Women's Pro Tour, will go into effect on March 27th for the Ford Championship. It will also be enforced on the Epson Tour starting on the IOA Championships on April 25th. And I believe the Epson Tour is the equivalent of the Corn Ferry Tour, which is um, the the AAA, so to speak, of golf. Because you do have you know you have minor leagues and all that. So I'm guessing that's what they're doing. So um, now the new policy will call for a fine if any golfer who is 1 to 5 seconds over their allotted time on a hole, a one stroke penalty for those from 6 to 15 seconds over, and a two-stroke penalty for those 16 seconds over or more. But when you start messing with strokes, you're messing with fines, you're messing with, strokes which leads to your prize money. Yeah, you're going to get the players' attentions. And apparently nobody's really against this from what I've seen, but I'm sure that there's somebody who's going to be like, "Oh, this sucks." But now, previously, the LPGA fined players who were 1 to 10 seconds over the allotted time and assessed a two-stroke penalty for those who were more than 11 seconds over. Now, this policy, which was player-led and developed through an established pace of play committee, was created in what we believe is the best interest of all of our brand, um, fans, and other overall LPGA watching experience. LPGA player president Vicky Getzy Ackerman said in a statement. She used to be a golfer. I forget how that first half of the last name is spelled. And by the way, pick a last name, Vicky. Okay, it's not that hard. Um, Based on the data-backed approach and direct player input, this policy now acts as a stronger deterrent in ensuring players that takes warnings seriously before penalties become necessary. Um, our overall intention is to improve the pace of play on tour, and these updates mark a significant step toward creating a more efficient and enjoyable competitive environment, benefiting both our members and our fans. And you're watching around the golf on the Golf Network or NBC. Well, NBC is a golf channel, but you get the idea. Um, you don't want to. I mean, you want to see those shots come up like this. And sometimes you're watching a shot on tape delay because, oh, let's go out and see what Tiger did on hole number 16. Oh, and Tiger bounced one off the Perkins waitress, and now he's getting on top of her, and blah blah blah. But um, so the LPGA golfers were informed of the new policy last week during a meeting at the Founders Cup in Bradenton, Florida. Um, the LPGA said golfers hitting first on par fours and fives will no longer receive an additional 10 seconds except on reachable par fours. Golfers hitting first on par threes, approach shots, and putts will still receive an additional 10 seconds. Players, for example, get 120 seconds to play a hole that requires them to take 4 strokes. I guess that's the cumulative time there. So, golfers will still be warned in time before fines and stroke penalties are levied. The tour says the fines incurred due to accumulation of plus times and excessive shot timing will double each consecutive year a player violates the policy. So let's say the fine is $20,000. Well, year 2, it's now 40. Year 3, it's now 80. And those things will add up after a while. Trust me. Now Nelly Korda, who's the number 1 ranked female golfer, said, "I'm very excited about it. I think that's one of the things I've just noticed over my time on tour that we used to go from 5 hours, under 5 hours, and now it's just 5.5 typically our rounds. So I think it's implementing harsher rules is going to be good for the game of golf. They were saying at a meeting at the end of the day, we're a form of entertainment. If we're taking really long out there, I mean that's not entertaining." Good point. Um, and there's golf on TV all the time. And who wants to sit there watching your favorite player play for 6 hours? Um, now the median time for threesomes in round 1 and round 2 at the Founders Cup was 4 hours and 31 minutes, and 4 hours and 23 minutes respectively. I don't think I could last 4.5 hours on a threesome, but that's just me. Um, the average final round on Sunday was 3 hours and 48 minutes. Um, so they are getting the um, they are getting um, used to these rules, and who knows, maybe that's something that they need in the short term and in the long term because I mean, I would think it's even more frustrating if you're stuck behind a slow group because somebody lost their ball, somebody has it plugged in the in the bunker. I'm sure there's different rules that are involved with, if a ball may be lost, because it used to be 5 minutes to search for your ball, and maybe you hit a provisional in the meantime. But you really have to realize that maybe they don't really, you know, but whatever they do, I mean, even though they're two separate entities, the LPGA and PGA, I'm sure some form of this rule will be in play in the PGA before you know it. I can guarantee that. Um, but But yeah, I mean, pace of play is an issue in the NBA, especially in the playoffs. Baseball has it under control for the most part. NFL, for the most part, it's okay. But even if you have a ball control offense, that really eats up clock. And, it's a ball control offense like the Eagles can be a nightmare to commercials, all these businesses that pay for these commercials, because guess what? Now your commercial isn't where you planned it to be in the first quarter because the Eagles had an 11-minute drive. Shit happens. But and hockey, it kind of laxed off a little bit, but they're not that bad with pace of play rules. But it just seems like golf is pretty bad right now. Uh, NBA has always been bad, and but they kind of clean things up a little bit with the timeout rules and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it's not fun to be stuck on the golf course, especially stressing over shots because you're playing for hundreds or even millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. You know, you want to get through that round as much as quickly as possible. You don't want to be um, sitting there waiting for your shot for 20 minutes because you got two groups in front of you which are clogging things up. But we'll see what happens. I think that's eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if um, the PGA does almost the same thing there because um, obviously something has to be done, especially with Dottie Pepper mentioning pace of play. I believe it was. Believe it was the tournament at Torrey Pines. Now, granted, there's a tourney at Torrey Pines this week as well, but that's because the Genesis um, when moved it down the coast because of the LA wildfires. Um, but we'll see if these pace of play rules do eventually go to the PGA and other golf tours around the country and world. Now, one thing I did mention, I believe it was last night, I mentioned how um, I had mentioned how Nevada and some other states, I believe it was New Jersey, made plenty of money from losses, from bettors' losses in the Super Bowl. The exception to the rule, which is not a surprise, is Pennsylvania. The Eagles' Super Bowl victory was a boon for sports markets in most states, but not in Pennsylvania. Sportsbooks lost in Pennsylvania a net amount of $6.5 million on Super Bowl 59, according to figures released Thursday by the State Gaming Control Board. A record 101.5 million was bet on the Super Bowl with Pennsylvania sportsbooks, a 20.4 increase over the previous mark set in 2023, which was 2 years ago, Super Bowl 57, which was Eagles and Chiefs. Um, the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board noted that there was a high percentage of wagers placed on the Eagles to win, including me. Me too. Um, Leading to a loss for their books, according to. Oh no, okay. It just says Philly defeated the Chiefs 40-22. Now in Pennsylvania, 73% of bets placed and 79% of the money wagered on the Super Bowl winner was the underdog Eagles at ESPN Bet, compared to less than 50% nationally at the sportsbook. At ESPN Bet in Kansas, the Eagles attracted only 18.7% of the bets on the winner. So a lot of people, a lot of people were probably sitting there and they're saying, "All right, well, I'm in the Kansas City area. I'm betting for my Chiefs. Some people you sometimes you bet with your heart and not with your mind, and that's how you lose money. Or in the case in Pennsylvania, you win you win with your heart. Um, and the one thing is with me from watching this past season and watching all the Philly fade picks I made, because I pick every game. I pick every Eagles game. It's all part of my shtick. Um, the one thing I will tell you guys is I am not afraid against. I'm not afraid of picking against my Eagles because even if I do put money on there on the game, it's not going to be a big amount. And the one thing I will always tell you, no matter if it's my horse racing show on Saturdays or my shows during the week here, always bet within your means. If you're, make sure your bills are paid up first before you dabble. And if you are going to dabble, dabble within your means. If you got a gambling problem, 1-800 Gambler, we know all about that. Just make sure uh, you know, make sure you realize what the consequences are, because next thing you know, you'll be hitting that at ATM a couple of times, and then you're sitting there a couple of weeks later wondering why I can't pay my bills. Well, you double and triple dipped at the ATM because you wanted to make a couple extra wagers. You lost, went back and you win again, and you lost again. That's why, like I said the one time to one of my friends in Vegas, um, yeah, I hit for $700-800 on a slot machine. Best part was I didn't have to hit the ATM for 2 days. Anytime you don't hit the ATM, it's a winning day. And that's why I said, it's anytime you don't have to hit an ATM in Vegas or in Atlantic City or wherever your brick and mortar casino is in the state that you live. Anytime you don't have to hit the ATM, it's a winning day, plain and simple. Um, but um, Now with BetMGM in Pennsylvania, that's where I was making my wagers because that's where my money was. Um, the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and the Philadelphia defensive and special teams were each among the top 7 most heavily bet in the anytime touchdown scorer market. Well, if you had Jalen Hurts, you won. If you had AJ Brown, you won. If you had Devontae Smith, you won. If you had the Philly defense and special teams, you won. Saquon Barkley was the only person that was giving these Pennsylvania sports books hope. Um, Now, the $6.5 million loss for Pennsylvania sportsbook is a sharp contrast to other states. New York Gaming Commission on Thursday reported a 62.8 net win on the Super Bowl for the state sport books, a figure that includes future bets on the odds to win the NFL championship. So they're looking more than just at the game itself, but the Super Bowl does um, cash out after that game, after the Super Bowl game for future wagers. Um, the state reported 154.9 million was bet on the Super Bowl, down roughly 4.4% from last year's game. The win, however, was approximately 5 times greater than last year's. So you're looking at um, some gambling jurisdictions that made a ton of money, where Pennsylvania, obviously, because it's the Eagles, and also you have a ton of different um, you have a ton of different brick and mortar books and casinos in Pennsylvania. You have one at Mohegan Sun Pocono. You have one at Parks. Uh, there is one at the OTB in Allentown, which is run by Mohegan. You have these different books and everything, and you're going to get people that are betting for the sake of their team winning, especially in a one-game situation like this. Whereas you do have um, like some states which don't have a horse in the race, they made their money because everybody wanted Kansas City to win. They wanted to see that three-peat. Well, guess what? That three-peat did not happen. And that's why there's a parade in Philly come next week. So, um, but we'll see what happens with everything. Um, we'll see what happens with all the latest news in the NFL. Kellen Moore was introduced in New Orleans today. He's non-committal. Derek Carr being his quarterback. Probably, you know, let's see how they play things out here over the next couple of weeks before the new season starts, before they go for a new quarterback or they keep Derek Carr, who I believe did not is not going to renegotiate his contract. So they might just have to say, all right, you're gone. But um, so so anyway, so there's no Mike. Welcome in. Mike is hiding out there. Um, there is no Philly fade this week. That is because of the fact that I did not get a chance to look at the college basketball for tomorrow. Um, I just didn't have time today because I also had a union meeting at 7:30, so I went online for that and all that. Um, so um, I see here that the Sports Business Journal is reporting the Giants are putting a limited stake in the team on the market, with process likely to set records for NFL franchise valuation. Um, so the New York Giants are putting a limited stake of the team on the market, kind of like what Jeffrey Lurie did with the Eagles. Um, Now, this was reported by the Sports Business Journal on Thursday. The Giants are regarded as one of the most valuable sports teams in the world because of their history and New York City market. They have hired Molius and Company as their banker, according to the report. The team's majority stake and control will remain with the Mara family. Team president is John Mara, whose grandfather Tim Mara founded the team in 1925. Um, Though the reason for exploring a limited partner is not known, the timing comes after an NFL approved policy in August that allows private equity firms to buy up to 10% of the team. Um, Giants organization Molius and Company declined comment. Um, Forbes' most recent valuation of the Giants comes in at 7.3 billion. CNBC pegged it at 7.85 billion. Um, Now, for recent comparison, the newly minted Super Bowl champion Eagles ranged in value from 6.6 billion on Forbes to 7 billion on CNBC. In December, the Eagles sold a combined 8% to two families in separate transactions, valuing the franchise at 8.1 billion and 8.3 billion respectively. Jeffrey Lurie still controls 85% of the team under the terms of the sales. Um, Now, three private equity firms received NFL approval in December to make deals to acquire limited partnerships. Arctos Partnership purchased 10% of the Bills. Ares Management bought 10% stake in the Dolphins and related assets. Bills were valuated by CNBC at 5.31 billion before the sale. Dolphins were valuated at 8.1 billion. Now, I could tell you for a fact from um, being here in Philadelphia, Jeffrey Lurie wants a dome stadium, and as much as he loves the elements and especially playing in the snow when the Eagles were on their way to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, having a having a dome stadium would bring more events there to that new stadium, whether it's called Lincoln Financial Field or another name. Now, this is also the trend that they have right now where Cleveland wants a new stadium. Um, Buffalo's building a stadium, but with no roof because they want the elements. And also the fact that even if they did build a dome stadium, they wouldn't have the hotel capacity for a Super Bowl. Um, who else was looking at stadium? Well, Tennessee's is starting the process. They're building a dome stadium because they want to host Final Fours, big concerts, other big events. Um, I'm just trying to think what else, what other teams are doing that right now. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. But Cleveland has an issue right now because even though they're moving from inside the city to outside the city about 10, 15 miles near the airport there's the Art Modell law. And that basically says you cannot move if your stadium has been funded by public funds, aka state and local monies. So they would have to attempt to sell it back to the city or state or get the approval to move to a different arena. Now, I think with the way that law was written in Ohio, it was to prevent the Cleveland Browns or the Cincinnati Bengals from going to another totally different state like the Cleveland Browns did when they moved to Baltimore. Even though you'll see that Baltimore was an expansion team, quote finger quotes. Um, you're looking at you know because it's more than because it's not what it used to be where okay we got 10 football games a year and maybe 4 or 5 concerts. Now, if you think about it, and I said it to one of my friends here, one of my friends last week, oh, why does Jeffrey Lurie want a dome stadium? Well, you can host a Final Four. I will even throw in WrestleMania because who wants to sit out in the cold like last year's WrestleMania was? Next year's WrestleMania in the dome at Allegiant Stadium. Much better conditions. But then again, April in Vegas isn't too bad either. Um, just trying to think what else. Um, Final Fours, concerts. Like I said to him, I said to my buddy, I said, let's say that new stadium was opening up this spring, this summer. Well, guess what? If Metallica was in concert, oh yeah, we'll go play at the new stadium. The Rolling Stones, oh yeah, we'll play at that stadium. William Hung, no, you're not playing at that stadium. You might break the ceiling with your squealing, but you get the idea. You can have these major events here, and it won't, and you have a roof over your head, so you don't have to worry about the cold. You can do basketball if you really wanted to for a Final Four. You can do all kinds of things there. And I'm sure that they will have a way that they can grow natural grass in that dome stadium because remember, you can't really do what Vegas and Arizona does. and that is take the tray of grass after each game and put it outside because once winter hits, it's not going to it's counterproductive. It'll just kill the grass because of the cold. I did see that one of the EPL leagues, English Premier League teams, their stadium they pu- they pull the trays underneath and they have ultraviolet lighting, which helps the grass grow. So you got that too. Now, what I think that the Eagles do, because if you put two and two together, and Mike says it perfectly, more events mean equals mucho dinero. And it'll have an effect on the economy in the city as well, if you think about it, because let's say you have a Final Four here in Philadelphia. Let's say you have a WrestleMania again in Philadelphia at this new stadium. You know, pick a major event, a major concert. Well, guess what? Not only do you have 70, 80,000 asses in the stadium, you're also going to have a lot of people coming in from other parts of the country or world, depending on what the event is. And even though the public funding is a bit misleading because you got to pay taxes on it and everything like that, and we're paying for it as normal citizens. But if you think about it, let's say a Final Four is here in Philadelphia, and it's at this new stadium, and I feel like this stadium is going to be, if they build this new football stadium, it's going to be built right at the Wells Fargo site, and wherever they're putting the new uh, hockey and basketball stadium, I'm sure that's going to be somewhere in the complex, but it's also going to be, um, but it's going to be in that complex, but obviously it won't be in the same building. I just think that if you knock down the Wells Fargo Center, which why would you? You would have the opportunity to build on that land, and the Eagles can take over that land, build the NFL stadium there. Oh, by the way, even though the Eagles never played at JFK Stadium, JFK Stadium, Wells Fargo Center, before the Wells Fargo Center, was JFK Stadium. So it would revert back to football, but it would be a much more modern stadium than JFK was. Now, I was never in JFK Stadium, but I saw it many a times when we went to games, Phillies games and stuff like that. It looked like a dump back in the early '80s. So, but you just got to realize that money does take the money talks, and I believe if you value 8% at 8 billion, I think they valued at 8 billion. So you're looking at 600, 700, 800 million dollars that Jeffrey Lurie has as capital for a new arena based off of selling that 8%. So you can then say, well, if you give us 500 million, I have 700 million right here, and then we can figure out the rest. So, but in Ohio, you have that Art Modell law. So Cleveland might be stuck in that stadium unless they agree to it. But it is an interesting thing that they have there going on right now. I haven't seen anything lately. I haven't seen anything lately in regards to that, but we're talking about 6, 7, 8 years down the road because um, the Sixers and Flyers have to build their new arena. Then you're going to have to tear down the Wells Fargo Center, which just got $400 million in upgrades. And then once you tear that down, if the Eagles wanted to build their stadium on that site and return it to football, they could do that if they wanted to. So, um, just looking to see if there's anything else worth mentioning here. Does not look like it, but USA is up 5-1 on Finland in the third period. They scored three quick goals there, I believe. Yeah, they scored three goals in the first 4 minutes. Um, but I was also hoping that now I didn't see the start of the telecast tonight, but I was kind of hoping that Finland would have remembered Jimmy Buffett tonight. They when they came out on the ice, they would come out in two lines. Fins to the left, fins to the right, and I'll wait for Mike's reply there if he's paying attention. Now, yeah, if you're a Jimmy Buffett fan, you know exactly what I'm talking about with the song Fins. But, you know, so just a reminder once again, I will be live Saturday morning, 10 a.m. on the Bleacher Brothers YouTube, the Bleacher Brothers Twitch, and Bleacher Brothers X, and whatever else I go to for another edition of Also Eligible. We're going to be looking at the fairgrounds on Saturday. They have 14 races on the card there, and the feature race on Saturday is the Risen Star Stakes. It's a grade two. They're going a mile and an eighth on the dirt. You got 13 horses going in that race, and it's a 50-point race. So whoever gets that 50 points will pretty much be locked into the Derby. Um, but we'll probably look at. I'm just looking at the races here. We will probably look at the last four races, which would mean that I would be giving out a late pick four as well. So, but that's Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We will have a hard out for 11:15 because your boy's got to work on Saturday. Uh, because I planned the parade to be on Wednesday when we were first able to request days off, and we got a whole bunch of we had a couple of bad weather days, and the parade's tomorrow, and I'm working. So, but but yeah, we'll see if we can pick some winners on Saturday and go from there. So, Mike, Brendan, Penguin AZ, everyone watching on X, anyone who's been, anybody who's paying attention, I do appreciate everybody for joining me here tonight. We'll do a live Saturday morning, see if we can get you guys some winners. And also, we'll be back on Monday night for another edition. Yes, it is a holiday, but not to me. It's kind of like Arbor Day or Flag Day. It's kind of a holiday, but it's really not. Uh, my paycheck the following week will say it was a holiday, but it'll just seem like a Monday to me. So, but anyways, do appreciate everybody, and we will do it live. Um, we'll do it live Saturday morning. And if you're unavailable Saturday morning, we will do it on Monday at 9 o'clock Eastern. So, or right after the Bleacher Brothers show. So I do appreciate everybody. We'll do it live tomorrow on Saturday. We'll do it live on Monday, and I will see you guys in the winner circle. So just a reminder that we are part of Bleacher Brothers. Check out bleacherbrothers.com for your sports needs. And if you're looking to open a sports book or even looking for championship gear, because you know you want that Eagles championship gear, there are even ads for that. Click on the ads even on there. Every little bit helps Bleacher Brothers. So do appreciate everybody, and I will see you Saturday morning for Also Eligible. This has been the Joe Quills Show. I'm Joe Quills. Have a great night, everybody.